It's recording now.
Okay, so our CPUN's purpose is to be a working forum for residents to participate in pursuing the vision of the neighborhood by creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. And we seek to be a vehicle for public service and to promote civic discourse and to achieve through all of this collective efficacy. And actually during the board meeting tonight, we're going to be touching on the topic of visioning for the board. And so the way that the purpose is written here, I think that will, in the coming months, should we dive further into these discussions, it'll remain there, but this might be where we're starting to see more of and this isn't my area of expertise, but a division of like the mission, the vision, the goals of the organization, and in the same framework where people who are used to working with nonprofit organizations or a not-for-profit organization are used to seeing those sorts of things outlined. So this is something that we're going to be focusing on, working on in the coming months, and talking about today later on. Okay, next slide. All right, so the agenda, we'll have some updates from our community partners, and then we'll just dive right into announcing who was the winner of our logo contest that was chaired by Jeff Horsfall and the rest of the Outreach and Communications Committee. And then we'll get into some general Q&A, maybe take a little break, and then dive into the board meeting where we're going to be talking about just the restructuring of communication that's going to be taking place starting next month. And also some of the planning that I just talked about a moment ago. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so let's start with community partner updates from Lieutenant Hines.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you guys give me a microphone check real quick? Because I was, okay, perfect. I was on a Zoom call earlier in the week, and I think I talked for 5 minutes before I realized nobody was hearing me. So I figure I'll get that mic check out of the way right at the beginning here. So for any of you who haven't met me yet, I'm Kevin Hines. I'm the lieutenant for Sector 1 in Police District 5, which covers the Central Park and Northfield areas of the district. So I'm responsible for all of the crime strategy planning that we have out in the district, and supervise the officers out there. Normally, I'm joined on this call by our community resource officer, Kiara Jenkins. Unfortunately, she had to be out of town today on a bereavement issue, so she couldn't join me here today. But just to give you guys some updates on what's going on in the neighborhood, one of the predominant issues we're concerned with right now is package thefts. I may have spoken about this at the last weekend, or at the last meeting last month, but one of the things we tend to see around the holidays especially is a big rise in package thefts throughout the neighborhoods. In the last 28 days, we've had 26 reported package thefts just in Sector 1 here in the Central Park neighborhood. And for every one we actually get reported, there's usually a few that don't get reported. So we are seeing a significant rise in those cases right now. So I want to tell you a little bit about what you can do to protect yourself against package theft, and then also tell you a little bit about what we're doing to try to stop this as well. From a preventive side of things as citizens, some of the things you can do are have packages delivered to your workplace. That's a little different this year. I know a lot of people are working from home, but being that you are working from home, if you know you have a package being delivered, make sure you set up delivery notifications by phone or email so you know when that package gets dropped off. Especially some of these Amazon delivery people are like ninjas. I mean, I'll look out my door, they'll deliver something, I'll look out the door, 2 seconds later, there's something there I never saw them deliver. So make sure you're paying attention to that, just so your packages don't sit on your porch longer than they have to. If you have a Ring doorbell or things like that, that's helpful for monitoring. If you know you're not going to be home and you're having a package delivered, consider talking to a neighbor and see if you can have the neighbor pick up the package. The less stuff we leave out, the less opportunity we offer criminals, and the less likely they are to frequent your neighborhood during a time like this when everybody's typically receiving a lot of packages. From a preventive standpoint, the Denver Police Department is running several operations in the neighborhoods, trying to catch the porch pirates that are out there stealing your stuff. We're also partnering with the delivery companies, FedEx, UPS, the U.S. Postal Service, and giving them tips on how to spot people who might be following their delivery drivers or casing them otherwise to steal packages. In fact, one thing that does tell me that the neighborhood's pretty involved is every time we've run one of our operations in the last 2 years and had our guys out in the neighborhoods trying to catch these guys, we've had at least one of your neighbors call in and report our undercover officers as suspicious people stealing packages. So that's good news. That means you guys are out there watching. We also get kind of a kick out of getting our own guys called in as criminals. So, but they will be out in your neighborhood. They will be trying to catch the people stealing the packages in the next few days. Additionally, we did make a significant arrest on package thefts back on the 13th. We caught a party in a stolen car, and we were able to trace. She had a bunch of packages on her, and we were able to trace them back to quite a few local addresses where these packages have been stolen. So hopefully that takes one of the players out of the mix who's stealing stuff from your porches. Aside from that, we're still grappling with the normal issues that we see every year in your neighborhoods. We're dealing with auto theft and we're dealing with garage door burglaries. I normally talk about these at length, so I don't want to tie up any more time. If you have any specific questions about that, though, feel free to message me or give me a call. I'm going to put my email address and our community resource officer's email address in the chat section here. And I'll hang around for a little bit if anybody has any questions. I don't know if there was anything else specific any of you wanted to cover with me, but that's what I have for you tonight.
Lieutenant Jack Seward,
Hi, Jack.
with us. I've got a couple of questions for you that I've been hearing about from various people throughout the neighborhood, and I think the biggest one is about some street racing activity that's been taking place in the area of 56th and Dallas Street, and there was, I guess, a rather large incident over the weekend, and a lot of noise is being made about that. So I was wondering if you might be able to touch on that issue and how you guys.
Before you comment, I'm going to piggyback on that. Those same, I would imagine it's the same street racers, are also frequently down behind the Urban Air Adventure Park and the warehouses, like that parallel the train tracks. So just on the north side of the train tracks, off of Central Park Boulevard, where the new Starbucks is.
Yeah, and both of those locations are among locations we have on our kind of watch list for that. Unfortunately, this is kind of a metro-wide problem. We deal with these street racing groups, and there's several of them that, several groups that are fairly well organized these days that go throughout the metro area. What these groups often do is start a social media following, and so they'll post and say, they'll move to areas throughout the metro area. And the two places that you just mentioned, Jack and Amanda, are two of the places they've been known to frequent. So what'll happen is they'll post on their page and say, hey, let's have a meetup at X spot or Y spot. And they'll go there, and when they start to feel police pressure or pressure from owners that notice them there, then they'll use cell phones or social media and communicate a new spot, and they'll move to a new spot. And they often bounce in and out of the city of Denver, in and out of different districts. We've had them as far up as Mount Evans, Fort Collins, down to Castle Rock, and it's all part of the same problem. So it's a known problem that we're trying to get a handle on. On a district level, one of the things we've done is have our community resource officers start working with the businesses, especially in those warehouse areas, where the large parking lots exist that are empty on the weekends that these groups like to gather. We've encouraged them to lock their parking lots wherever possible. In some cases, that's not possible for them just because of the type of deliveries they get in and out. Where they haven't been able to lock their lots, we put a number of trespass agreements in place. That way, if we do find street racers out there, we can take action against them. Now, obviously, when we pull up with even 5 or 6 cops, and they have 1,000 people, a lot of people are going to get away, but we still are able to take some action, cite some people, and make the location less desirable for that kind of activity. In recent weeks, we have made we have issued some summons, and we have had some arrests on that kind of stuff. It is an ongoing issue. From a regional issue, we have a street racing task force that I'm a part of, and our community resource officers also involved in. We do some joint operations where we try to get multiple agencies on board to deal with that problem, where we can do a coordinated operation on any given night and try to shut it down that way. For instance, if we come and put pressure on them in District 5, we don't want them to just move across the border to Aurora and be able to continue the action or jump down to District 3. So we've done a number of coordinated operations with our regional partners so that we can try to shut this down a lot better. It's a challenge for us because we aren't going to go to the point of getting into vehicular chases with somebody for street racing and end up killing one of your neighbors who's trying to get across a crosswalk or something. So we're trying to come up with ways where we can address this and take the punitive action that we need to take without endangering everybody in the neighborhoods at the same time. So it is a challenge for us. But in these operations, we record license plates, we contact people, we do take action. Sometimes it's on the backside from an investigative standpoint, so you don't always see it right there on the street, but we have confiscated cars and crushed cars for the street racing activity, and we have taken action against the people organizing these groups. But it is an ongoing problem we're trying to deal with. What I can tell you from a citizen standpoint, keep calling it in. If you see these large gatherings, call it into us so we can get our officers out there. I mean, we're taking calls throughout the district, and we won't always notice as fast as you do that a group's forming up in these areas. So always call us and let us know when you're seeing that activity with 100 cars out there, and we'll get out there and address it.
So this is Rick Luthold here. And as transportation committee, we get a lot of people who ping us about this also. I had been referenced to the reportstreetracing.com. Is that something you're familiar with or utilize as a particular vehicle?
Yeah, that's part of the that page is part of the street racing task force that's put on by Kayak, the Colorado Information Analysis Center. I missed a couple of meetings there because for those of you who didn't know, I was out on paternity leave for a couple months. I only returned recently, but that's a website we've been working on getting together all year. So I assume it's finally live now that it sounds like people are hearing about it. So we're trying to get, again, more of a coordinated effort to capture the information we know about this, where it's happening in real time, and be able to address it.
So one of the other things I want to comment on, what you're talking about here is, and I think that's like the 56th and Dallas thing, it was a much larger, more organized street racing aspect. But I've had several people reach out with regard to just folks who are, for instance, staging at 29th and Central Park headed south, and they'll race off down the street there. Just as kind of a onesie-twosie kind of thing. I had a person send over some video doorbell camera footage on 26th over by the Stanley. There's that four-way stop right there, and yeah, that car was easily going 60 miles an hour down that street, zipping through. So we also have some of those kinds of problems, and we've referenced them to 311 and to report them, and at least so they get documented for the location, so that you could look at additional patrols or speed controls or traffic calming or whatever for those kinds of things.
Yeah, and certainly if you see people forming up, just so everybody's clear on what we often see, these groups will form up in a parking lot, and then they'll pick a location. Even if they're not getting pressure from us, they're going to get moving as a group. And so sometimes we'll see a caravan of, 100, 500 cars even in some cases, and they'll travel across the city. And what we'll see a lot of times is they'll get on the highways and they'll form like a rolling roadblock on the highway where some cars at the back of the group will slow down and block traffic. And then people within the group will actually do like rolling races within the group. In fact, one of the sergeants from our agency in another district who's on the street racing task force as well got caught in that one night in her personal vehicle driving back from Fort Collins, and got caught up in that where they were running rolling roadblocks and trying to do that. So if you see these groups forming up, call that into the non-emergency number and let us know so we can get some officers in the area. At the very least, even if we can't completely shut them down that night, just seeing our presence will usually get them somewhere else, and out of your neighborhood's a good start, and we'll keep working again with our regional partners to try to get it shut down. It's definitely a problem, and something we would like to see stopped as quickly as possible without any loss of life in the neighborhoods too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then, Lieutenant, I had another email that I got regarding it was regarding garage doors and some concern about scanning garage doors and setting up codes. I wondered if there was any truth to this. I guess the individual was concerned that people are going garage door to garage door and setting up clickers and then coming back and committing home invasions later on. And I just was wondering if that was an isolated incident or more widespread.
We've had no evidence of that being any kind of widespread concern. To be honest with you, most burglaries are crimes of opportunity. Somebody will walk or drive through your neighborhood, look for an open door. When they see an open door, they can be in and out of your place in 30 seconds and take thousands of dollars worth of your property, be that bikes or tools or anything else that are in the garages. The vast majority of burglaries in the Central Park neighborhood are open garage doors, and most of those burglaries are isolated to the garages. In other cases, we have seen people enter unlocked vehicles or break into vehicles, take the garage door openers, and then use your garage door opener to open the garage and enter their garage. Most of the burglars we're dealing with aren't sophisticated enough that they're going and, cracking the code to garage door openers and coming back with clickers. I mean, I'm not saying it's never happened, but that's not the predominant issue we're seeing. The primary issue is garage doors being left unsecured, or like I say, the occasions we've had some patterns where the crooks are taking the garage door opener from your vehicle that's parked outside and then using it to gain access to your garage.
Thank you. And I don't want to take up everybody's time. So if there are other questions, I just had one last one for you, Lieutenant, and that was around some of this criminal mischief to vehicles that we've seen an increase in the district lately regarding people breaking windows and then rummaging through. I'm wondering if there's an increase in trend on this, or if this is just par for the course. I know I've personally gotten a lot of emails about just people breaking windows and then rummaging through cars. I just was curious from a data perspective what that looked like.
From a data perspective, I'd have to get back on that specifically. We occasionally get trends where somebody will go by and break out windows on a few cars at a time. But overall, I don't think that's a dominant crime issue we're dealing with at the moment. We have had windows smashed to get into cars to steal stuff from the cars, stuff from motor vehicle cases. Certainly, we've had a few criminal mischief incidents, but I don't think it's... let me take a look here and see if I can get you some better data quickly while we're on the call. But I don't think there's been a huge uptick in that in the neighborhood at the moment. Give me just a moment. I just got to find the right database here. And of course, when everybody's waiting on a call, nothing moves fast. So it'll be just a moment here.
While you're clicking on that, and since we're talking about statistics, I had an email exchange with the community resource officer a couple of weeks ago, right before the commander meeting, asking for the year-to-date statistics compared to what we have now versus the past 30 days, just because of the way that the crime trends happen close to holidays. And most of the measures were up year-to-date. instead of the past 30 days, where maybe there had been a slight decrease at the last monthly meeting. And so I didn't have a chance to go to the commanders meeting, but I did share that with the community. And then there were questions about like, well, what is DPD doing about the increased crime this year versus last year? Whereas like we know that trends approaching the holidays are that crime increases with package theft increasing, but it seems that just overall there's just a lot more crime this year versus last year. And is that something that DPD is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's a concern for us anytime we see crime going up. Obviously our goal is to keep crime down. So a lot of the stuff I've talked about already is are among the issues we're doing to deal with these crimes. Real quick, to the point about criminal mischief cases to vehicles. In Precinct 511, which is the north half of the sector, we're up 17% for the year, 41 cases versus 35 last year, and only a twofold increase over our 3-year average for the month. And in Precinct 512, oh, hang on, my computer froze a little here. This thing doesn't like to multitask very well. We're up more in 512, but only 5 cases over the 28-day average for this last month. So it's an increase, but not one that stands out alarmingly. So like some of the other issues we've been talking about, Jack, just to answer your question on that. As far as other issues are concerned, yeah, whenever we see crime going up, one of the reasons we've expected some increase in crime in the area is just from population growth, but we've had a little bit of, I guess, outsized growth in crime, more so than we'd expect out of the population growth. So we're constantly looking at ways that we might be able to address these issues. Some of it comes from an enforcement side, but at the same time, we're finding that we're arresting more offenders than we normally do. Some of it's trying to partner with the court system and make sure that we can adequately address people who are repeat offenders, because we have had people that we've arrested 3, 4, 5 times for auto theft. And, when we keep arresting them, it's pretty obvious that they're not staying in jail for doing that. In other cases, obviously, diversionary programs are a better alternative to putting somebody in jail, but we want to make sure that we're identifying the people who are sort of prolific thieves and prolific criminals in your neighborhood and getting them off the streets, because if they're not going to stop that behavior, we need to take some kind of measure to stop them. So, the enforcement side obviously starts with DPD, but then we have the court system involved in that as well, because we are not judge and jury here as police officers.
Okay. Is the amount of calling, and in previous years we had conversations about people reporting crime on social media and not reporting it to the police. Do you feel like people are better about reporting to the police these days, or is that still an ongoing issue as well?
I think that's an ongoing issue. We still hear about cases where, some of it's not always that there is a big crime trend either. Sometimes people hear about something in that game of telephones played where we, I guess, sort of manufacture a crime trend. And I go back to the case that when I first got out here was just the most glaring example of that, when somebody was asking me about the triple homicide that happened related to a fight at Northfield. And as I looked into it more and dug into it, it had nothing to do with, there was no triple homicide. And the fight that was supposed to be at Northfield High School actually occurred at a school in District 4, which is Southwest Denver, and had no connection to here. But that, I guess you would say, electronic game of telephone had a lot of people in the neighborhood worried that there was a big crime problem that didn't exist. So we have some aspect of that where we have people on social media talking about trends that don't always exist or don't exist to the extent that they believe it does. But we do still have issues where we hear about crimes that have been reported on social media but not reported to us. I think things like the Ring doorbell portal have helped. We get a lot of information from residents that way who say, hey, I saw this suspicious incident. Hey, something was taken from my porch, and here's a picture of the suspect. I think we're getting better about getting the message out. So there's probably still some improvement to be made, but I think we're improving, even though I can't say that we don't still get crimes reported on social media, not to us from time to time. And, you know, certainly this is a double-edged sword, because if we improve our reporting, you're going to see cases go up too. So maybe it means more people are reporting. I'd like to say we could dismiss all our crime increase for that, but there's probably a actual increase in crime too that goes beyond that.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Lieutenant Hines? Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go on to, I see Lily on the call from Denver Public Library. Hi, Lily.
Hi, Amanda. How is everyone? I'm Lily Kosmiski. I'm a librarian at the Sam Gary branch of the Denver Public Library. We are still closed to the public, but we miss everyone. And we're not really doing our outside services anymore just because of the weather. You can still do curbside pickup. Stop by in person or in your car, and we'll bring your books out to you. We are also doing bundles, so you can give us like, I want 5 mysteries for adults, or I want 10 books about frogs for kids, and we will pull those for you. And we have online stuff still. We're doing online programming, book clubs, story times, etc. I'll share this link with everyone in the chat. That's just all of our services right now. And let me know if you have any questions.
I'll grab that link and just put it in my notes. Does anyone have any questions for Librarian Kosmiski? Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, Lily. Let me see. I saw Amanda join from Councilman Herndon's office, but I don't see her over here.
Can I ask a quick question, Lily?
Oh, sure.
So, Lily, this is just a personal thing, but it seems like now when you try to get an ebook, you can't seem to go directly to the Kindles anymore. And there's this whole other system that my Kindle doesn't like, and a lot of people I know. What's the story why some go to Kindle and some you can't?
Yeah, so ebooks are a challenge for libraries in many ways. With the Kindles in particular, that is due to Amazon. So it has to do with your Amazon and Kindle account, as well as, yeah, it's like a translation issue between the library and Amazon. But we're happy to help you. If you want, I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
And if you're having trouble, we are available Tuesday through Saturday for any kind of troubleshooting that you might.
Okay, I will email you then. Thank you so much.
Of course, no problem.
I'm seeing in the chat from Kimberly Schmidt, it's up to the book publisher if the book is available on ebooks. So it can be issues with the publisher, and it can be issues with, I guess, is Amazon a publisher in this case? I don't know. Okay, but thank you, Lily, for being available for troubleshooting. And I have grabbed your, oh, it just went away. There.
Yeah, where'd it go?
It's up 3 there. Okay. So I will, and so Mary, do you see that? Up 3 in the chat?
Yeah, I got it.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lily? Okay, Amanda Schultz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Schultz from Councilman Chris Herndon's office. For those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet in person yet, I don't have any specific announcements tonight, but I am around for the whole meeting. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here. Feel free to send me a chat or just ask away.
Great. Okay, thank you. And let's see, Jack, is there an unofficial update from the MCA that you can share? Or I see that I think Shelley's was on the call. I'm doing this from memory as people were joining. I shouldn't. Yeah, Shelley Sedley is an MCA delegate, I think. So between the two of you, are there any updates from the MCA that can be unofficially delivered?
Hello, this is Shalise. No updates. I would just like to remind everybody that the meeting is tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Please pre-register. The new board members and the community delegates will be announced. Or I'm sorry, the voting for the community delegates. The voting for community delegates is open until the 17th. Thank you.
Well, are there any areas, do you know if there are any regions that haven't met quorum yet? I know that that's been an issue in the past.
We've met quorum in every district.
Okay. Okay, but everyone should still vote. Not an excuse not to vote. Okay. Are there any other community partners on the call that I haven't called on? Okay. All right. In that case, I do have one more announcement from Bluff Lake Apartments, since that's on the next slide. So back before Bluff Lake Apartments opened, and so these are the units that are at the intersection of Martin Luther King, maybe 31st Avenue, and Havana Street, and these are income qualified apartments. This specific build was targeting women and children. They have a nice playground on the inside of their courtyard, and one of the well, not one of the resident coordinator, Zainab, and I spoke last week, and so there was someone else who was in that role about 8 years ago, and I had lost contact with the community, and so I was so happy to get in contact with her, and she sent, after we talked, then I asked her to please send a letter that we could share. So this link has been shared on social media. We sent it in an email to our 10,000 person distribution list. No, that's not true. We had already sent our monthly email before I got this link, so we did not distribute it, but the MCA is going to distribute this for us tomorrow. She told me that as of today, there are 42 items that are left on the list, but she wanted me to express that people are very, very grateful for things that have been donated so far, and then the response has been phenomenal. Things that remain on the list are educational toys and some clothing, cups, plates, pots, and pans. She and I talked about that they do have a food bank that people can donate to that's available Friday afternoons, and you need to contact her. Her information is there to make donations to the food bank. That's an ongoing weekly service that they provide to their residents, and then this is a holiday focused wish list for these 5 specific families that are having a particularly hard time right now. So is this new to anyone? Has anyone not seen this from what we've shared so far?
Amanda, it's super easy. I think, it makes giving like too easy in some cases, but I think it would, if anybody hasn't looked at it, the stuff is very pertinent to the community. So I encourage everybody to go out and try to give a little back to the community.
Yeah, I do. Oh, and I see someone in the comment section who wrote to me saying that they donated. Thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, Amanda?
Yes.
This is Regina.
Hi, Regina.
I live over in Bluff Lake Apartments, and I happened to catch somebody going through because they've been coming in, and some of the packages has come in over the weekend, and I happened to see a resident going through and opening up the package, and I had to stop them. So me and Z, that's what I call her, had arranged where the packages come directly to my apartment and she picks them up.
Oh, wow. So you're receiving all of these packages?
Yes. On an average, I'm getting like 6, 7 a day.
Okay, so Gina.
No, she just comes and picks them up, but it's to keep people from taking the packages.
Oh, and thank you so much for taking care of that for the community and for her. I know she told me her business hours, and that alone made it seem hard for people to coordinate for food drop off because it was during morning and mid-afternoon, and then in the late afternoon she was doing the after-school care for the kids on site. So I know she seems to be kind of all over the place there with responsibilities. So thank you for sharing the load with her. This is important.
Yeah, so if there's anybody who needs to drop anything off, I'm available.
I'll be calling you, Gina.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. And then we'll be back in touch with them after this holiday season about being more regular about supporting their food bank and other needs that they have on an ongoing basis. Okay, so now I'm going to pass this over to Jeff Horsfall.
Good evening, everybody. Amanda, thank you for leading that effort with Mercy Housing, and Gina for opening your home. That's very generous of you, both of you. Thank you. We have a new logo, and I'm excited to be the one that gets to share that with you. I thought I'd quickly recap what our process and timeline was for identifying this logo. After the official vote to change the name of our organization to Central Park United Neighbors, we announced on September 9th a logo design contest. Professional, aspiring, amateur designers were all welcome. Anyone that wanted to submit a logo design were welcome to do so. You did not need to be a Central Park resident in order to submit a logo. By submitting a logo, the winning logo became the property of Central Park United Neighbors, and that logo would only be used by Central Park United Neighbors. That is to say, this is a logo only for our organization, not for the community at large or for any other entities within the Central Park neighborhood. On November 24th, the open call for submissions was closed. In between, we received over 60 unique logo designs. We were thrilled with the response and engagement from our community. This is a really fun community building activity, and we were very happy to have so much participation. From November 30th to December 4th, the CPUN Communications Committee selected 3 to 5 options to bring to the community for a vote. This included, in all instances, a little bit of back and forth with the designers to modify their original submission to make it as successful as it could possibly be. We were never looking to make wholesale changes to anyone's design. It was small things like needing to add United Neighbors to the bottom of a logo or something to that effect. With all of that behind us, we took the 4 finalists that the outreach committee identified to the community for a vote. The formula for the vote was very similar to the way that we handled the rename effort, albeit in one single round. Voters were asked to rank each option as their first, second, third, and fourth preferences. And the winning logo was selected by the weighted total of the votes received. By that I mean 4 points was granted for every first place vote, 3 points for every second place vote, etc. I also want to acknowledge, Brian, if you don't mind moving to the next slide there, our 2 sponsors, Primrose School of Central Park and Control Freak, a professional audio and video integration company that is owned by CPUN's own Mandel Rousseau, for their very generous offers, sponsorship of this. We were able to offer a $600 prize to the winning logo thanks to these 2 organizations, and we're really grateful for their engagement and participation as well. Next slide, please. These were the 4 logos that we brought to the community for a vote. I want to acknowledge all of the designers, all of whom did this on spec for free to be good neighbors. They dedicated their time and their talent to making this happen, as did everybody else who participated in this event, and we're really grateful to all of them. Design A came from Troy Bielenberg, B from Cameron Burns, C from Jackie Sciarra, and D from Stacy Jeffries. We were very happy with all of these submissions and pleased to present them to the community for a vote. With that, the next slide will reveal the winning logo. Here it is. This is the new logo for Central Park United Neighbors. This was created by Cameron Burns, who I believe is on the call. Cameron, congratulations. He and I
Thank
spoke.
you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to speak here. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for your design. We're looking forward to putting it out there across the community.
Yeah, thank you so much. Happy to do it too.
And Jeff, just so everybody knows, you might have noticed there was a little subtle hint in the change in colors in the PowerPoint presentation tonight to match the new logo. So.
Well done, Brian.
I tried to match the color as best we could.
You did all right. Yeah, I see it now.
I'll get you all PMS color breakdowns and all of the things that you need. I own a agency here in Central Park, so Watermark, and so we'll make sure we get it all to you right. So I'll break it all down with PMS colors, RGB colors, CMY colors, a little logo kind of guidelines and some things that will help to use it properly. So we'll get that to you soon.
Perfect.
Cameron, will you send me, I think you have my email address because we've communicated before, right? Hi, Cameron, this is Amanda Althouse.
Yeah, hey, Amanda.
Can you send me just like a little paragraph about yourself? I mean, if you pull it off of your business website too, that's fine. So that I can post that with the logo when we share it with the community.
Yeah,
and like
definitely.
that you own Watermark, and that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Everything that Cameron's talking about is really important because having a logo in place now unlocks so much of what we're looking forward to doing in 2021 with respect to a new organization website, a lot more outreach and communications efforts, fundraising efforts, being more active in the community with table setups and all the kinds of things that you want to put logos on. So this was a real significant milestone for us in terms of starting to put that those big ideas that we have into practice. In the interest of just full transparency, I wanted to run through some of the stats behind the voting. As you can see, the weighted totals in the upper left there give you a sense of the relative popularity of the votes. We had over 1,125 approved votes, to be specific. When I say approved, it means that some were thrown out because they were accidentally left blank or something like that. There was some reason why they couldn't be counted. I think the total number of votes that couldn't be counted out of the total was 52. So the overwhelming majority there was no issue. I'll add that Cameron's logo was also had the most first place votes, with 59% of the first place votes total as well. So strong support for this particular entry, and we're looking, as I said, we're looking forward to sharing it with the rest of the community.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you for leading that. And just with 4 options in the field, that the winner actually got a majority of the vote is kind of amazing. So that was very well received by the community. Thank you, Cameron.
Amanda, somebody asked me to put the 4 logos back up, so we just went back.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right. And just well, okay. And so now we are about 15 minutes early for a little break. So I'm just going to encourage everyone to physically stand up and walk away from their computer for like 30 seconds. We're going to pause between meetings, but get in some movement. Don't sit for too long. Take a bio break if you need one. I'm going to fill up my water. Back here in like 3 minutes, and we're going to get into the rest of the evening's meeting. That I feel like that was very abrupt. So the meeting's not ending. We're just transitioning to the board meeting. Just wanted to give people a little bit of a break. So 2 minutes. Brian, do you see the message in the chat about whether recordings are being posted?
I do, Amanda, and I thought we had posted November. Mark and I will work on that.
Okay.
Hey, Amanda, this is Shalice. Earlier when I was speaking, could you hear me?
You mean just like a minute ago?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. What about when I gave the MCA announcement? Because I couldn't really hear you guys on my end. I was like, oh no, did they cut
Oh yeah,
that?
yeah. Everything that you were saying during the announcement, I heard just fine. But I stepped away from my computer just a second ago. So if you were talking,
no.
I wouldn't have heard it.
I wasn't. When is the new? No, I don't need to recap it. When is the new logo going to be posted on the website?
As soon as we can get it posted, but
so
probably within the next day or so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're transitioning websites starting next month. I mean, I would imagine that so we'll hear more about that in the rest of the meeting tonight. But
yeah, it's a little more major than just posting the web. We will post it, but just know that there's color schemes and everything that have to be changed. That won't happen on the old website, so it'll just be on the web.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know someone asked me which logo was changed, and because I was driving, I wasn't able to take a screenshot of the new logo.
Okay. At least I can send it to you if you'd like a image of it. I think the other variable here is getting all the design files from Cameron, so it'll be a few days. But I'm happy to send you an email.
We can get a low quality one up on the website tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the low quality one to be fine. Just something so people can have a visual. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Amanda will probably have it on Facebook before the night's over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I can. Started popping a screenshot in the chat, so you have a quick one too.
Can you put images in the chat?
It depends on how you have your Zoom settings configured, but in this one, yes, you just upload a file.
Oh, I didn't know that was possible. I don't think I can do that on work calls. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let me take a screenshot of the agenda so that I can stay on it as we're going. And we're not going to be on until 8:30. That's all internalized, that we will be ending the meeting before 8:30 tonight, so that it will end promptly at 8:30, if not sooner. Okay, so are there any comments from people in the community? just like an open comment. Anyone's welcome to just say hi or ask a general question or introduce themselves if this is their first meeting. Anything, the floor is yours.
And Amanda, should they be able to unmute themselves?
Oh, I guess if that's not something they're capable of doing, then maybe if they need to like raise their hand. Oh, Kimberly Schmidt writes, thanks for all CPUN does for the community. It's appreciated. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, I won't put anyone on the spot. So we will then move on to progress on the template for a new website, which is launching, as we've been talking about, in January of 2021. Oh, except that I have a question, just to make sure everyone says a little something tonight. So we're going to start with Brian Pinney for reasons that will be obvious, but I would like for everyone to talk about which public art display in the community you wish that more people have seen.
Amanda, I think I would just encourage everyone to look at all of them because they all have a purpose and they all were selected by the community. So if you don't know where they are, you can go out to the MCA website. There is a map, and we actually have a link on our website too.
All right. And Brian, do you want to note why I asked you to talk before anyone else?
Because I was on the public art committee.
That's right, and it's no longer active, right? It's complete.
Right.
It's disbanded.
Yeah, the funds for the public art committee were the last installation will be on MLK, right at the curve. There's a park that it should be installed in the spring. That'll be the last installation.
MLK at the bend on Moline, heading away
Yeah,
from the 29th Avenue Town Center. I mean, the East Ridge Town Center.
I need Jack, but there's a park there. It's a triangle-shaped park.
Doesn't have a name yet. It'll happen eventually. But yes, that will be home to our public art display.
Can we host a vote to name it then?
Oh, you're talking to the wrong person about that.
Come on, we've gotten really good at that.
In previous meetings, Jack has described that there are a handful of parks that do not have meaningful names that he would be open to renaming. Let's
not that Jack's open to renaming, but that if there was a will, a renaming could be anticipated and brought about. I am not the controller of park names. I do not want to be known as the controller of park names because.
Is that why they're not named Jack?
Well, that just isn't the type of business I'm in.
Okay, and I'll be very careful. I don't want to. So Jack has a dual role as a board member with Sun, but also someone who's employed by the MCA, and I need to be very careful about asking him to speak on behalf of the MCA versus freely. And so I always want to be sure that I'm not putting you in an awkward position with your employer. So.
No worries at all, Amanda. I'm just joking there. It's all good. I'm just joking for the most part. But yes, we got a lot of parks around here, and some names are better than others. So always looking for feedback on that.
Okay. All right. So I'll go down the window the way I see people. Carol is next. Carol. Oh, but you're muted.
I'd like to see more public art. I heard what Brian said about funding, but I'm really interested in seeing graphic design on buildings. And there's a lot of new building that's going on Central Park, and it would just be lovely because all that stuff just kind of blends together. And there are huge buildings, whether they're office or hotels or apartments, and it would just be lovely if owners would figure out some creative ways to do some graphic design on the buildings if there can't. And actually, I think that would be more effective than a piece of art that's in a courtyard or in a corner or that sort of thing. Otherwise, we end up looking like any other neighborhood. So I think it would be nice to encourage folks to do that.
Are you specifically talking about what's across from the transit station with those townhomes with a face?
That's one space. That's one area that's being developed, and it's all along. I want to be correct. What's the building that's on the corner of Northfield and Central Park? Is that is a? I don't even want to guess what that is.
Do you mean the southeast corner, southwest corner?
Southwest,
Sorry.
be the southwest, I think.
Okay.
I think those are apartments.
Right. Okay. And it would be lovely if there was some design work on the surfaces of the building. So
that.
That's Kappa Towers, too.
Oh, that's what it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a senior living. Yes.
There you go. There you go.
That, Carol, that might be a tricky ask in this community just because of what I've heard sitting in meetings, in zoning and planning meetings, which no longer happen, by the way, but there was always a moment when someone asked or someone reported like, this is the feedback that we got from the design review committee, which is not a public meeting and I've never attended. But they talk about like what elements are on the outside of buildings and what colors are used. And I wonder actually if there would be extra hurdles in this community to having public art like that on the side of buildings. That's something that we could look into for clarity on that, because I think it's a little ambiguous, but I'm interested in what the answer is.
There is some, Amanda, there is some, there actually are some pretty strict restrictions on what we call signage, specifically in anything other than residential. So if it's a single family home or a duplex or, anything that isn't an apartment building or large scale condominiums, they're going to be subject to some pretty restrictive design review criteria, and that's part of the Green Book. It's actually laid out there in the Green Book. It's escaping me which section of the Green Book lays it out, but okay. that is likely the reason why we don't see a whole lot of that on the side of buildings, just because of that restriction.
Another challenge.
Yeah, and I also went to, Gina pointed out what Kappa Towers is, and I remember when they did come to the zoning and planning meeting to talk about their project, and they're a fraternity that's sponsoring this building, and I think the color palette that they used in the development is consistent with the color palette of their fraternity, so that they in particular might not be open to to changing their coloring, but it's certainly worth looking into, because I too like to see graphics on buildings, but just from having heard these conversations in the past, it makes me wonder what's required of people. Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Jeff?
You.
Me. I'll say the new mural in Sand Creek. The Sand Creek Regional Greenway sponsor as partnership that sponsored that project have been great partners of ours at the Sustainability Committee. It's a beautiful piece of work as well too. It's a really talented art. The town artist is really talented, so I'd encourage everyone to go check that out. It's on one of the old tunnel walls that's been repurposed for some public art.
Thank you. Mark Maringer.
I was assuming we were going to do the Jeffs in alphabetical order or something, but I will agree with Jeff that the mural on along Sand Creek Greenway, because it's much better than the graffiti, and it's nice to see something productive there. So I like that one a lot. Though the only other one that I know the name of or could cite was the Eye and the Horizon, because it's close to me, but I didn't want to go with one that was close to me just because it's close to me. So yeah, I'm going to go with the mural.
Great, thanks, Jaya. Or Dr. J.
I don't have anything specific, unless you want education community update.
Oh, the slide. I don't know if you can see the slide on the screen. Which public art display in the community would you like for more people to see?
I don't have one. I don't know all of them. I was actually just asking Jeff where the one on Sand Creek is, because I wasn't familiar with that. I feel like I've been in lockdown too long to even think about public art. I apologize. I didn't know this was a discussion topic.
Okay. All right. Jeff Ederer.
Oh my, a lot of great choices. I'm actually going to go a little different though, because I don't think everybody would consider this public art. But as somebody with several generations of and members of my family who are in the aviation industry, I just appreciate the creativity with Central Park, where that main walkway is kind of designed as a runway, and it literally has, kind of takes off and has a viewing platform at the east end of it. But I don't tell people that when they come to town and visit with us. I tell them that actually where we live, since I live in Eastbridge, just across from that, I tell them actually our neighborhood is so spectacular that they had to build a viewing platform just so people could come and see it in full. So that's my favorite art-like piece in the neighborhood.
That's pretty good. You don't call it the bridge to nowhere.
No, I seriously tell a lot of people that they had to build a viewing platform so they could, see our neighborhood.
Nice. All right, Gina.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Do you have anything to add about, so just to go around and give everyone a chance to weigh in on art in the community, is there anything that you wish more people have seen?
No, I think, no, I don't have anything more to weigh on right now. My granddaughter's climbing all over me, so I can't hardly think. I'm her jumper, her bouncy toy or whatever.
Oh, as you should be. Excellent. Okay, I'll let you get back to that. Rick.
I have a fondness, and I had to look up a few of these names. I didn't know that they had such great names, but the chorus, the conical shapes that are over along Westerly Creek there out in the fields. I like that. I like the Wingate art up in Northfield. I like those kinds of things that there's again, an engineer. I like things that are kind of structural and that kind of thing. They're just kind of placed out and seem a little out of place necessarily from where they are. I'd love to see a stainless steel monolith show up in one of our parks here. That's it.
Okay. Let's see, Brad.
Yeah, I'll go the opposite of Mark and show some South End pride. So you got the airfoils at DSST Montview, and then I actually like, maybe this is just from like traveling in Europe, but some of the bridge embellishments on the South End. So like there's a bridge that goes over kind of the Greenway that has like geodes on it, which you don't really notice if you're just driving by, but if you're kind of walking under it or near it, you kind of see them. So it's kind of just a subtle piece of public art there.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Oh, but Jamie, you're muted.
Oh, so sorry. There's a couple of like house structures that my daughter thinks are magic houses. So there's one on kind of this main walkway that goes kind of by our house along Yosemite Street. That's like a circle with different colored glass around it, and you can run around the inside of it in a spiral, and that's called the Magic House in our world. And if you keep going down that parkway, it ends on Trenton Street and Stoll, I guess, and there's a blue, like these big blue archways, and that's the second Magic House. So we go and visit those fairly regularly.
My daughter loves that one too. She calls it the toilet paper roll.
Magic House toilet paper roll.
Nice. Thank you. Sandra.
Well, I'm going to blame the pandemic and being housebound for not even realizing we had public art. So I've learned a lot tonight, and I'm glad that there's a website. And when the weather is warm, I'm going to take my kids around to like see this public art. So I don't have anything to contribute, unfortunately.
That's fair enough. Jack.
My favorite would be the bridge that MLK runs along that crosses over Westerly Creek. It has those towers there, and again roots us back to our aviation heritage here in the neighborhood. We actually won awards for that bridge back in 2006 when it was built. So it's my favorite of our public art around the neighborhood.
Nice. I didn't know that that was an award-winning bridge. Fantastic. Jeff, Theron.
I like the balloon man at the train station. In fact, I didn't realize it was a balloon man. My kids pointed it out to me. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's like it's when people make balloon animals and things like that, and it's got the little tied off part at the top. It's very clever. It's really good.
They really should expand on that and make more balloon people for over there.
A whole balloon family.
Whole balloon family would be great. Yep.
Yeah.
And each of these have stories, by the way. So when the train station was built, that was above and beyond the public art, just like the overpass over I-70 at Central Park. So each of these have stories that are part of the community. So it's good that you guys are picking up on that.
Right. And I think that I like the bridge that goes underneath what is it, Central Park Boulevard, close to Northfield High School, where like the underside language. Like what I see is the roof of the bridge has like these rolling things that are just decorative. I don't know. And then so there's water, and then there's a walkway under there. I'm not describing this well, but it's kind of just like a fun feature. What is it, Jeff?
They're yellow, right?
Yeah.
They kind of look almost like coral or kind of ripples or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know I've read what it's supposed to be and I can't remember, but I just like looking at it, and it's a fun thing to get to while getting around the community. Clearly I don't have a lot of language for art, but it's pleasing to the eye when I'm there, and it's just kind of fun to go through the tunnel. Okay. And is there anyone else on the call that would like to share anything, having heard us talking about this? Okay. Oh, wow, Brian, you've got the logo on the website. Thank you. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Mark, I'll pass this to you.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if you wanted to do the official Mark. It's your turn. Yes, I get to talk a little bit about the timing of the website. There were a few different things that I wanted to kind of go over. I believe we have funding secured, but though not in our bank account yet, for Nation Builder. So the things that we needed to discuss as a board, first is just the timing and logistics of things. Specifically, what I had in mind is we get a 14-day free trial to start off. But I also wasn't sure, since we historically haven't had, shall we say, much money, we don't really have like a card that we usually charge things to. So I wasn't sure if we were going to do a charge and reimburse approach, or if you wanted to do something else, or what, from a financial standpoint.
Oh, that's a really good question. Brian, do you have any suggestions for this? Because this will be a pretty big, we will have them upfront money for 1 year, but it will be a multi-$1,000 charge. Is it worth getting a credit card for the organization in order?
We can't. Yeah, we can't get one, Amanda. So
can't.
That's fine.
Not.
Why? Just because we are a
whatever
we are. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
we don't have like regular real income.
Yeah. There's the type of bank account we have. The closest we would come would be a debit card. But that's not a service that First Bank offers with a free non-for-profit bank account. So I actually still, I've been waiting for the verification from the IRS to change the name on our bank account. I could ask First Bank when I go in to do that, but I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who doesn't like paying $10 a year for the debit card either. So I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure I knew what it was, and it's a hefty amount of money up front. So then in terms of timing, did you want to wait? Yep.
You should look at Nation Builder and see if there's an ACH option. We could just provide the bank account information on the website, and then they would just take.
But then I don't get the cash back to make a donation to Sun with. CPUN. Oh. Speaking of which, I had an idea for the Sun thing. I think through the end of the year, we get a grace period of mistakes, but next year, as a fundraising idea, every time anybody says Sun, they got to put $1 into the Sun fund.
That's pretty, I don't know if I said it last month, but within the past month, I did change the files on my computer and in my bookmarks to be CPUN. It took me a few months, but I did want to report that that's happened.
Good idea, Mark. I like it.
Yeah. So in terms of logistics and timing of things, I can probably get started on setting things up. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't, that I didn't start our free trial period too soon. So I wasn't sure if you wanted me to wait till the 1st or if you want me to because that'll probably be when we get recharged as well. Is, a year after that. So I can wait until like the 2nd or something like that. And then go ahead and get it started.
Do you have time?
And then
do you have time to work on it in next 2?
I do. I had my giant project is done, so I have lots of time to work on it right now, especially this week.
That free time seems to be the biggest variable at play with a 14-day trial, right? Can you take advantage of it? So if you can, seems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does position the board to have a huge payment due immediately after the holidays, but I guess that we could work that into a call for like end of the year donations and just knowing that we have to have everything. I mean, we're going to be talking about the need for a more formalized fundraising committee, and so it's not like 2 years are going to go by and suddenly we'll realize that we need to raise several $1,000s. Hopefully this will be something that's been in the works for years leading up to the first time that the money is due.
Yeah, no, I don't want us to rush into the fundraising side of it. I want us to get a plan in place first and follow that plan, because I've seen too many organizations and campaigns who kind of rush the fundraising and do it wrong from the get-go and get stuck in a bad cycle. So I just wanted to make sure I understand, when's a good time for me to start getting that set up and going, because today's already the 15th, so we're, barely more than 2 weeks until the end of the year anyways. So, and I wouldn't expect instant reimbursement for something like that anyways. It's okay. So I just wanted to double check on sort of the timing and logistics of like, how do you want me to get that set up and going? Plus, I sent out an email a couple days ago, last week, something like that, recently, for the Outreach and Communications Committee to get a meeting set, and it looks like either Thursday or Monday are the most likely. And I'm likely going to opt for Thursday, but a couple people haven't weighed in yet. So if you got that email from me and haven't filled out the when to meet thing, please fill that out so that I can make sure to finalize that and not leave you out. And hopefully you know who you are, because I don't want to out you in a public meeting. So just jump on that email right now. In terms of the structure of the website specifically, I've got kind of in mind already, having a homepage. We've talked about we have a board page. We have, I was assuming, a page for each committee, calendar and events we've talked about, and a community news page. I wasn't sure if people had any feedback now who aren't on the Outreach and Communications Committee that wanted to say, hey, I think it'd be great if we had this on there. So I gave everyone a chance to do that.
Thanks, Mark. Is the community, so in the way that you've described this, the way that this page has like things that are integrated in it, can the community news page also sort of just be the home page where it's like a scrolling log of like things that are being pushed through for like news that we've shared to the community on social media, so that'll kind of like cycle through on its own automatically?
Yeah, it'd be sort of a blog format, but yes, we can have, a blog, essentially blog feed where we tag each of the posts and they show up there. And then when you do that, there's a way, or there was to relatively easily also post that exact same thing to Facebook, to our page on Facebook. So you do it in the Nation Builder site, and then you click a button to post it to Facebook, and it automatically goes to our Facebook page that's linked, and Twitter.
Okay.
And I don't know if we want to do TikTok and all that other stuff. We can talk about which social media profiles we want to set up to, but later.
Okay.
But I would love to see you do a TikTok dance or something as being president. That'd be pretty interesting. But if not, that's okay.
In terms of structure, Mark, I think if we look at like home being separate and what content we would actually put there versus what people come looking for, I think it would be great if the homepage was community news with a calendar of events and then a separate link to board and committees as one. Just because I think simplicity is key in our world right now. So when people
Yeah,
go
I mean,
to
honestly,
homepage, they typically
I don't think
want to know
calendar
what's
events.
happening.
Yeah, I don't think calendar events and community news will both fit on the same page very well. But
Okay.
I'll see what kind of templates they have. But I'll see what I can do that. Usually you want some sort of greeting who you are, what your purpose is on your homepage, and then we can have a community events blog style feed underneath it. And I'll try to vet a few of the templates through the committee later. I just wasn't sure if there was a specific style of anything that anybody wanted to make sure that we definitely had on there beyond sort of that kind of structure.
Mm-hmm.
I think two other things to add would be the donate button. And also like a history page, just to say like Brian Penny has been a board member for 16 years.
So Brian Penny history page, got it.
Yeah,
I was thinking for anything else. Sorry, go ahead.
When are we going to have our e-commerce page where people can buy the T-shirt with our new logo on it?
Good points. Thank you. Exactly the kind of stuff I needed reminders of. Sandra?
I was thinking maybe a resources page, because I noticed that on our board meetings, people are always saying, now, who do we go, like, for example, for tonight, like, who do we go to report, the street racing, who do we call? And, Lieutenant Hines is always putting up his contact information and other, the library. So maybe a place of, if you just all these things that people keep asking for during our board meetings, to just have a page where it's like, here's the link.
And Mark, that stuff is out there. Most of it's current, but some of it's dated. So we could we call it the community page. So.
Or resources, right? And that way, when we're in a meeting, we can just direct them right to the resources page and have that page organized by safety and whatever else, library, whatever our main buckets are.
Yeah, I was looking at this as an opportunity to hopefully chuck some of the stuff we haven't been maintaining and update with some of the stuff that we have been. So yeah, I'll make that. That sounds good too.
Yeah, Jack and I spoke about doing something like that. I don't know if we're going to have individual pages for each of the committees or not going forward, but we had some ideas on that kind of stuff that we could direct people to for safety,
so definitely,
for the safety committee.
Okay. Yeah, I was envisioning a page for every one of the committees, like some sort of drop down for that. So that'd be great.
And then your last bullet point, Mark, you have trainings. What do you mean by that?
So in terms of, there's a few things to also, is that the Nation Builder, again, is not just a single website platform. It also integrates in with social media. It also allows us to do customized email lists all in one place. So for example, the sustainability list and the regular Sun email list could be hosted in one place. So one discussion we as a Sun board should have is how much free reign do we want to have committees have over being able to send out emails, because we also have unlimited email sent. We're no longer limited to one email a month. I strongly encourage that we do more than one a month, because people tend to forget who you are if they're only getting it once a month. But I don't want to be like, a campaign pestering people all the time either. So we should have more a process in place for like, here's our policy and what people send, here's who you can send to. But we can also have subset emails where sustainability gets to send something, once a month. It's subset list of people who have signed up for that. So we will need to do some training. So I would like to get on the calendar for, probably February meeting to have that be a sort of go over how to send an email, but also before that, hopefully have a discussion of like what's okay to put in your emails, what's not okay. We obviously don't want to do any political stuff, and have that written, written policy that can give to board members as they onboard in the future, so that we don't get in a situation where somebody sends out an email about a, I don't know, political group that crosses the line that the rest of the board doesn't want, or something like that. So, so that was kind of what I had in mind. Plus, I know at least one of the Jeffs, maybe both of them or all three. Well, no, the two J Jeffs wanted to have trainings, I think, on some of the fundraising sides of things as well, so we can figure out how to integrate that in with the plan for fundraising efforts, because they were kind of leading that effort. So, so I wanted to make sure that the trainings were extended beyond the Jeffs.
Mark, thank you for doing that. This is going to be a really great upgrade to our current practices.
Hey, Mark, when you're setting up the mailing list, does it have flexibility to change the structure after it's set up? Because the way that vertical response is now, you have one list for this, and you have to choose which list you want to mail to. But are there variables?
I think they do a tag system. So
Yeah.
like every individual can get tagged for multiple things. So you can show up, and then when you do a send, you would, default, it would be a dynamic list as opposed to a static one, right? So it automatically takes anybody who's tagged one way or another, or does the broad list.
And then what about opting in? Because I think that one, is, I want to add my name to the mail list. And then today it just, we create it and it goes off and it adds you to the mail list. But could it be like, I also want information about X, Y, and Z, and then, volunteering or, giving donations or.
Well, one of the things we'll be able to do, that it would be my suggestion for that in terms of opting into the sublists or other categories, is build it into the survey feature. So if we do a survey, we can say, do you want to do this, this, and this? And some of the questions you can tie directly into automatically tagging people then to be that, so that you don't have to do any other work beyond that. If they take the survey and say, I'm interested in receiving information on sustainability, is my example that I'm going to every time, then they'll automatically be added to that sustainability list whenever we send it out for anybody tagged that way. So we could do the same for whatever other categories or tags we want to do.
And so when I asked that question about trainings and maintenance, I actually thought I was still thinking about the bullet point above it. And Brian, if we can go back one slide, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't. That wasn't intentional.
Okay, but for trainings, and then there was a question in the chat at the time, which was, I'm going to scroll up a little bit so I can see it again, from Kimberly Schmidt, which was, what about a connection to the MCA? And so Carol has mentioned this a few times, that it's ambiguous sometimes for the community, like what we are versus what the other organizations are. So when I read this, I was thinking like training, like a community, not like a civics 101 for the community, like this is what an RNO does, like, so train, like for people who are new here or new to being involved here. So like so this was just more of like a structure of the site, like hey, if you're new here, like this can help orient, like an orientation.
So what I had in mind in the trainings was how to use the site so that board members can update their committee pages and send their emails. Yeah,
I
wasn't thinking so much about, but yeah, resources pages would be good. I don't think we're going to do I mean, we could, maybe we could get a class in one of the local in all the local high schools about, the MCA versus the CPUN versus the, I mean, when I first joined the board, the first thing that I had to do was like a 3-hour orientation on a Saturday afternoon with a giant binder about the, the alphabet soup of all the organizations. And
who hosted that?
Mike King and Mike Johnston, the one who was on the school board, because Mike King was the president, and then Mike Johnston became. Wait, I forget which.
And I think I gave you the notebook from that.
And I think I still have it, buried somewhere. And I'm sure I opened it once. So sorry. But yeah, we have materials on a lot of that alphabet soup groups, like the INC and stuff like that. But we also have more historical reference points on the board now than we did before, so that helps too.
Okay. All right, thanks for letting me revisit that other bullet point. I understand your intent for the last one.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Of
course.
Just to support what Carol was saying. I mean, as someone who's sort of tried to very much keep track of what CPUN was doing and MCA, I have to say that I'm not sure that the avenues of communication are always working the way that they should, or the designated jobs they're supposed to do might not necessarily be operating the way that they should. So I do think it's something that we should look into in terms of like how to make sure that the MCA and CPUN are communicating better, and that CPUN has more input with MCA, and that all that is taking place. Does that make sense?
How specific do you have? Is that a general comment, or do you have specific suggestions for how to go about doing that?
Well, I mean, I think what Carol suggested is that someone go to both, and of course Jack is here and he goes to both, which is good. But like, I mean, most recently it's the logo design that has come out of MCA. Like, clearly input wasn't requested from CPUN. And so that's an area where I would say communication isn't happening the way that it probably should be. But I think clarity is needed. So I'm just gonna put that out there. And Carol had suggested that some work be done to sort of clarify those roles. And for sure, our neighbors have no idea what the two organizations do.
And just to read what's going on in the chat right now. So there are block captains for Be Well, and Kimberly might not even know about those block captains. And so that's a training group that is hosted by the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. But in addition to those block captains, CPUN has block captains, but it's kind of more of a dormant network. We haven't been very active in recruiting, but the outreach meetings, which is this monthly meeting that we're having right now, used to be solely attended by block captains, and we still do encourage people to join, but it used to be a much more vibrant network of people who would also then be block captains with the Denver police, and so that block captain phrase was used in a couple of different organizations, but I'll let Kimberly answer. Okay, yep, so she is not the block captain for Be Well. I don't think that Be Well has a lot of penetration in this community for their block captain network with the Be Well trainings. I was on their advisory committee about a decade ago, and I think that their focus was really largely on the surrounding communities. And less so on participation here. But Gina, I'm happy to hear that you're familiar with the Be Well block captain group, but that's separate from the work that we're doing. Yeah, Jeff Eder.
Yeah, if I can jump in here. I think one of the things with MCA is, what exactly do we want in our relationship with them, or what do we need to connect? And it seems like if we could take a few minutes, not right now, or a little bit of time, and say, this is what we would like to see. We would like to see input on decisions such as the logo and other things, but see if we can establish a set of guidelines that they could agree to, so that we don't kind of continue to have this conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd actually piggyback on that and say, the way the MCA was originally intended was drafted by the developer that doesn't exist anymore and got bought out. So I think that's a great point, Jeff, that we really need to think, how do we want that to evolve, and what kind of requests do we have, as opposed to, saying that there's something wrong. It's more of it's evolved from something that was intended to avoid community interference for a while, and they've moved beyond that point. And it'd be great to, have them evolve into a direction that we're super excited about and really engaged with the community.
The way I explain, I get asked this question a lot. What is the difference between the MCA and CPUN? Because the MCA is a registered neighborhood organization, much like CPUN, but we don't have the same functions as CPUN, right? So the MCA is really the operational arm of the neighborhood. Our objective, our mission is to operate the neighborhood's infrastructure and provide comprehensive parks and recreations programming. Whereas CPUN is the advocacy arm of the neighborhood, and their job is to, bring bring the community together to address the issues affecting the community. So I know, I speak with people all day, every day about, what the MCA does versus what the city of Denver does versus what, issues could be directed to CPUN. And I know that, my bosses, particularly Diane Dieter, is very interested in having these conversations about how we can work more effectively together. So I think that, we should, maybe not from me, but someone else here on the board, reach out to her and begin that dialogue, because I know that's something she's very committed to.
Can I suggest that topic when we reconvene in January and kind of re-examine what our purpose is? It seems as though to have a clear charter, you sort of need to understand your place in the ecosystem, right, and the role that you play. And so maybe that's a good opportunity to organize some thoughts around what we want to be relative to the MCA.
Amanda,
that might transition us well into the next slide. Is that what you're doing? Yeah. Okay. So Mark, are you okay with us moving on from? Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Well, I think that this leads into it well. That the Jeff and Amanda, Mark and I have kind of been chatting via email and text about, we've spent the last probably 2+ years working on, a mission of the name change, and that's really absorbed the board. It kind of refocused where the board went on some things, and I think my recommendation, and this is a recommendation, it's not a directive, but that we as a board get together to do a strategy session, just like you would with any organization, whether for-profit or non-for-profit. And so, I think the idea is that we would set aside maybe a Saturday morning or, something where we could all virtually get together to walk through all of these things that we're talking about. And I think that we would have a set agenda that would kind of start at the top level, which is, what is our mission? What do we mean to do? And, there'd be a facilitator, there will be a note taker, that won't be Mark Maringer, but there'll be that was a joke, but there'll be a note taker, and, that note taker, it's meant to be kind of a free form conversation. And so I put together a few slides. The first thing is we need to come up with a vision. We know what is our vision? What do we need to be to the community? I think we've got our, and so that is, and Jay, I know you do a lot of this from a educational standpoint, but you're more than welcome to help and put this together. But the intention is that we would start with the vision, and then we would talk about goals, and what do we want to be for the community as a board, and how do we communicate it? Do we communicate organizational goals, or do we have the committee goals and then those roll up into the organizational goals? Either way, I think it's an ideation session that we would get together and talk about goals. And then, then as a community, just like we used to do with Forest City, through the SDC, we would, we as a board should be held accountable to meeting our goals, reporting to the community on what our goals are, and it would set a format and a structure. So that's the idea, and then we would need to determine, do we have the right structure to meet those goals? Do we have any other committees that we need? How do we recruit volunteers, and then discuss actions for each of the committees? And then, I just put a laundry list to get people thinking, and we'll send the presentation out with the slides to the board. We need to pick a date for this planning session. determine who would facilitate it. I didn't put on here who will help with the note taking. Ideally, the committee should meet before so they can have some ideas to bring. And then also we should solicit feedback from the community in advance. So, hey, the board is setting their goals from 2021. What is the community do you think we need to do? So, you know, put that in our first email or, you know, an email in the new year. You know, meet to finalize the goals and visions, create the budget, and then how do we communicate this out to the community and then report? So that's the concept that I'm starting with. I don't think we necessarily have to debate anything tonight, but it's an idea, and you know, whether we do it in January, February, you know, the sooner we do it is the sooner we get towards the goal, and kind of get the board refocused on what we need to do.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing here is getting community input. It's like, how much do we need to filter from our own discussions and push to the community to get feedback and to generate more ideas? Because some of it's going to be a little bit iterative. And I think that having the structure on the website with the organizational chart would be helpful, and maybe channeling people's focus to like the types of things that we could potentially do. So I was thinking that this would be happening in early January, but maybe it's not possible to do this that early if we're going to do a wave of community feedback first.
That was an idea, Amanda. I think
Okay.
it's probably more important for us to get together and do it.
Okay.
And maybe as the communication channel, we flip that around that says, this is what the board is thinking for their goals. What have we missed? What do you think we need to do? And solicit feedback from that. And this goes back to what Mark mentioned. Okay. This was Mike King's, you know, idea is, you know, you kick off every year with a planning session, you set your goals, and kind of go from there. So,
do we have an idea who the facilitator would be? Is there a preferred facilitator already?
I mean, we can call on Steve Charbonneau.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say we could always go back to Steve if we want. If he was successful before, but you know, I don't think we need, you know, necessarily to use a professional facilitator if someone.
Well, he is a professional facilitator. He's just provided to us by the city. That's like saying when we go back to meeting in person, like, should we meet at the rec center for free, or should we see if the DoubleTree will like give us a good rate? It's like, no, we're going to meet at the rec center for free. I mean, and Steve is good, but it's also a service that that the city provides to RNOs, and so that would be a good use of community resources if we were to need to pay for a facilitator versus using.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was thinking, you know, it would, I think there's enough resources within the board that, you know, a small group of us could get together and plan it, whether it's with Steve or someone. I just threw out the idea that you need someone that's driving it, that has, you know, how to draw people's ideas out. I was not part of the name selection committee, so I didn't see Steve in action, but I'm, you know, it's pretty standard if you've been in those meetings, what a facilitator does. Their job is not necessarily to know the content, but to get the content brought out by the participant.
Well, I don't know if Mandel's on this, but Rick, you're on the meeting. You had Steve as your facilitator. Would you recommend we use him again from your experience? Because I've actually never used him as a facilitator.
Yes, I would say I'd be comfortable using him again as a facilitator. I think he did a good job of keeping us organized without getting directly involved in the decision process and that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
Two things to mention. First off, between the rec center and DoubleTree, I didn't know those chocolate chip cookies. I'd vote for DoubleTree even if it does cost money. But on a more serious note, too, I love this. I think this is right on the money of what we need to do. You know, I'm wondering, because we don't have to do it for the calendar year, and we're already going to be into 2021, and we're soliciting feedback for 2021 and such, and and implied in that is that we're behind the 8 ball in a sense. And I'm wondering if it can be something to where we set it for like July 1st to July 1st or something like that, so that there's some planning to, I mean, it could be March 1st to March 1st, for that matter. But I think does that have to be a calendar year, because we're already behind the 8 ball?
And Jeff, that was the 2021 was a figurehead, not a calendar year. And I think that was part of the discussion, was when would we do this? How quickly did we want to do it? It's just that, every month that goes by that we don't do it is a month that we're not driving towards goals, getting the community what they need. And so that, I think that's part of what we need to decide.
Which I think is great. And I think we do need to press to get this through. Perhaps we decide what the year is, the exact dates of it once we're ready to say, yes, we're ready to launch. But the challenge, of course, is not to delay forever.
Just here, our year is, we have our annual meeting in May, right? So that's when the elections take place, et cetera. So it would make logical sense for the year to run immediately following that. I think the only piece that gives me pause about waiting that long in a concrete way is the Nation Builder site. It's a significant investment and commitment. And to the extent that these decisions influence our ability to deploy that effectively, I'd like to encourage us to move some of that stuff up to the front of the list and act a little sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I feel like May would be a time when we could convey the results of this process, and then that would be something that can be implemented as the board is moving forward in its next year, starting with the election in May. But this is something that we could do now and over the next couple of months, and then have the final version of it in May or sooner.
Well, it's always great too, I think, to introduce a program and yes, these are our goals. And as a matter of fact, we're doing so well, we're really already well on our way, with some of these too.
And we've heard before that it's important for us to have a needs assessment for the community. I think that was feedback that was voiced during some of the diversity and inclusion committee meetings I think in Brooks' house. So this would have been like years ago. But that was a question that one of the participants in those meetings was asking. And so perhaps as part of this process, we could build in a way, and I don't know what it means to do a community needs assessment. I don't know if I should say that out loud, but hopefully someone else who's listening to my voice does, and that can be part of the process of getting feedback from the community, not just on what we're saying we're setting out to do as a board, but also doing a needs assessment for what other people feel like are the needs.
Yeah,
So,
it
Amanda,
seems like.
Can I make a recommendation that we survey the board and throw out some dates in January, early February to get a date on the calendar, and then if anybody is interested, I think it's more finding out if Steve's his name, right? If Steve can do it, when he could do it, and Regina, I think until we're in a different spot, I think we need to probably plan on doing this remotely, or virtually, and we can work through it as the board member or the executive committee.
Okay, so it's a lot of information. I'm glad that everyone will be added to the presentation so people can review it after this. What else? I can revisit the screenshot. strategic planning. So we also have space for committees to talk about goals that they've been discussing, and then reviewing, this was my bullet point, an agreement of board accountability and responsibilities, but that's kind of built into the strategic planning, and then committee charters. And conversations that I've been having with INC. So the vice president of INC is interested in providing better templates for RNOs to use, since we're an organization that has sister organizations across the city. One of the council members recently surveyed communities. She's very interested, she being the vice president of INC. It was a male council member that did the survey. So we would like to have the data from other RNOs to, because we have specific needs here that are different from other groups, because like we've talked about, we have an MCA that other people don't have, and we have other things that make us unique, but then there also are shared needs that different RNOs are going to have. And so this is also a place where we could maybe lean into INC and get resources from them in terms of helping us organize and think of things that we might be missing. Okay, is there a next slide?
Next slide is the last slide, Amanda.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Just wanted to go back to the idea of the MCA, because I think everything you discussed is a good idea, and like coming up with a mission for what CPUN wants to be for the community is good. But as mentioned before, there's some pretty big changes happening with different logos with this name change. And I think the idea that CPUN, that MCA is always moving forward without community input is really troubling. And I think that's something that really needs to be corrected probably fairly quickly. Like whatever the communication stream is supposed to be has never been there in my experience of living here.
Well, we're completely in different organizations. So
no, I understand that, but like that's exactly how Jack described it, where CPUN is meant to be the ears of the community, the voice of the community, listening to what the community wants. But MCA then implements things. And if you don't have a connection between what the community wants and what's implemented, then there's major issues, which we've been dealing with.
So before the pandemic, I had tried to initiate like a quarterly conversation with the head of the MCA, so with Kevin Burnett, and also with Justin from the Business Association. I feel like we have a pretty open door with Justin, but not being able to like go to the coffees that I was hoping we could do. And I mean, to like you're saying, just to like have an open channel of communication. So that went away with lockdown, but so we had one meeting and then that was it. So yeah, they have a staff, and this is their full-time work, and they have meetings and I can't always attend them. And I would almost think that they would say that the onus is on us to attend their meetings. Like for instance, there is the annual meeting tomorrow night, and to give that feedback there. But you also have delegates that are elected that represent the community with the MCA. And so then those delegates would then be the appropriate channel for providing communication to the MCA board and the MCA staff. And so that structure is in place, and maybe it's just that it's not utilized as often as, because we get a lot of feedback as CPUN, as people who are actively meeting. Like the delegates have their meetings at noon. Sometimes it's the day after we meet. Sometimes it's like the week before, just depending on like how the Tuesdays and Wednesdays fall in a month. But this, so they do have a body of people who exist to receive and channel feedback, but I feel like we just get a lot more of it than they do.
Amanda, I would say we get equally as much as you do. They're just different issues that are directed to different entities. We do have a dedicated, a system of people send us lots of complaints. I mean, I spend my days reading complaints from people in the community. So
well,
I think
when I'm talking to people at INC, I differentiate us from other organizations by saying in this community, the MCA plans fun events, and then we're left over to get negative feedback from the community. But you're saying that you get a lot of negative feedback from the community, which is just surprising.
you know, I shouldn't call it negative community. We use the word complaint very vaguely there, which is pretty much any piece of feedback that someone has. You know, that could be a broken sprinkler in a park that needs to be fixed, would constitute a complaint in our book. But then it would get the appropriate, you know, individual to, you know, resolve that issue. And I think, you know, we are two separate organizations with two. You know, the MCA has a staff. That's where I get paid, and so I think we just are two separate organizations. And I know that we need to you know, we just approach things through different avenues. And you know, they're delegates. We're electing new delegates on Thursday at 4 p.m. Last chance to turn in your ballots. 4 p.m. on Thursday. Please turn in your ballots. But you know, we're just two separate organizations, and I don't necessarily know if there's an easy way to connect us more other than doing what we're already doing.
I mean, we're lucky that Shalice does attend these meetings. I don't think I see her on right now, but she's a delegate, and she's been very good at coming to these meetings since like the moment she was elected. But not all of the delegates do. And sometimes I go to the MCA meetings and sometimes I don't. I know Carol is going this week. Thank you, Carol. So I think, you know, as Brian was saying, or maybe it was Jeff Ederer, like listing out what it is, like the specific requests and like the nature of the, like, we want a better connection, but like, what does that look like? And in what areas is that most important? I think would, like, the more specific that language can be, the better in looking for a different outcome.
I think the logo thing is a good specific example, though, of where there can be some ambiguity for folks, right? Like two separate organizations, yes, but I think where I'm confused or have been confused in the past is, did the MCA decide that it was their decision to unilaterally pursue a logo design under whatever on whatever basis? Did they say that our delegates are responsible collecting for that feedback, or should they have used us as a sounding board and habits dictated that they didn't? Like, those are the areas where I think it gets a little confusing for people, and where we might be able to step in and make some suggestions about how it could be clearer.
Yeah, and Halloween, I got an email from a resident saying, like, what are we going to do about Halloween? I'm like, I don't know. So I emailed the MCA and they were like, let's have a meeting about it. And so then we like scheduled a meeting, and then that resident didn't come. And so then it was like me and two of the staff members from the MCA planning a flyer for Halloween and other like activities. So it's like they're open to like doing things when we have like specific asks. But I mean, I know with the logo, it's like we didn't think in advance to say, hey, now don't put out a logo without.
Well, yeah, but that onus shouldn't be on you, right? I mean, so to some extent, this is the MCA, because yes, you're different organizations, but you have the same communities, more or less. You have responsibility to the same people, right? And so it should never have happened that this logo could go ahead without community input. And CPUN over the years could have had a much stronger voice if MCA were willing to listen. And I think that's what I'm asking for, is that at some point CPUN go to MCA and say, we need to create a flow of information so that the people of the communities that we both serve are being heard.
So I would disagree with the characterization that logo decisions have been made already. We are actively pursuing feedback on logos. Nothing is final. The logos that were shared at November's board meeting were shared to the board and then to this group to solicit feedback. Nothing is final. Those are proposed designs, and we are actively soliciting that feedback. So I would disagree with the way that is characterized.
Well, but I think, Jack, the point is not whether how far along in the process it is, but that from the get-go, what was the process for going about that logos design search, right? Like, the MCA was quick to let CPUN lead the renaming effort and just sort of took a back seat there. I was curious why, for example, that we wouldn't have been engaged from the start with the logo design, if that was their stance, that was a community matter.
So the logo, we were designing a new logo for the MCA. You know, that our logo is the letters MCA with a line, and then, you know, that Stapleton graphic underneath. And so we've needed to replace that Stapleton graphic. We have, dozens and dozens of signs that need to be replaced. So that's why we proceeded down that path. And we certainly want to hear the feedback of the MCA and from CPUN and from the community. And again, I can't speak for the MCA and for the whole staff. I'm here, as a community member, but I know that was our objective. I think we could have done a better job communicating it, but those aren't that's not my role with the organization.
So as an outcome from this conversation, I'll send a letter or a quick email over tonight saying that a chunk of time tonight was spent talking about the communication flow. We had that one coffee session, but obviously that's not something that we can do during the pandemic. We have monthly meetings sometimes. I mean, I don't want to put too much pressure on Jack. So, I mean, sometimes Diane comes to these meetings and sometimes not. Sometimes we can have representation, but just to have a better sense of when important decisions are being made for the community and where are there opportunities for other community input into the MCA's plans for like the next calendar year. I mean, are there, like, just in general, like what types of, and so maybe Jamie, maybe I'll send this tomorrow if you can maybe just think about the nature of like what aspects of the MCA's work where you'd like more of a voice from the community and whether or not that's being fulfilled by the delegates or not.
Yeah, I can take a look at, if you draft something, I'm happy to take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have one comment, just from watching this conversation, which I think is a good constructive conversation, and I completely agree that I would have preferred for MCA to bring us in earlier, but I think we need to not make Jack the unofficial representative at MCA since he's a board member on our board. It's fine, I think, for him to provide us with information and to help us to understand processes, just like if someone asked me a question about GAO, I would try to provide information as well. But I don't think it's fair to put him in that role as the unofficial representative of MCA on our board, because I don't think that's what he signed up for.
So, yeah, totally agree.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Jeff. Before we end this, because it's almost 8:30, we're back to identifying what these two very different organizations do. And I think and then we have to market it, for lack of a better word. We need to get the word out as to the role and the responsibilities of both organizations, which I see as being very, very different. And so we're kind of back to that. And I'm hoping that if we do this meeting, which I really support in January, that can be part of this. We were also supposed to talk tonight about our committees. And so I put something in the chat about, and I guess we're not going to talk about the committees, but there's some of the things that you were articulating about process. The two committees I'm part of, we had already started to do that and setting goals and our purpose, that kind of thing, and then routinely meeting each month. Separately from when the whole board meets. So I'm just encouraging folks, and I really appreciate all the remarks and the thoughts that you have about, again, identifying and marketing our role. And I like what Jamie said about the flow of information. And we need to think a little bit more deeply about specifics as to what that means. So I thank everybody for their input.
Yeah, one thing of some historical reference I want to add before we close is some of this flow of information was different when the CAB existed, because that was the body for a lot of the organizations in the area to kind of talk with each other and convey things. And they've been gone for a while, and there was sort of a vacuum that everyone knew would show up there. And to a certain extent, a lot of the city folks wanted SUN and now CPUN to fill that void, even though our purpose and mission was different. So this is a great time to have that conversation in January. And I think we should definitely try to, as much as we can, to engage Diane Dieter from the MCA and Kevin Burnett in clarifying some of that beforehand. But I think it'll be great to have that conversation and sort of set a new course now that SDC's dissolving, CAB's dissolving, and all these other things that used to exist to help with this are gone.
Okay.
Mark,
Oh, sorry, Carol. I was just gonna say, Mark, I agree with that. And I think Sun has been so singularly focused on the name change for so long that, you know, Carol, Jamie, the intent of us putting the strategy session out there is to re kind of jigger things and get us to a better place. And all of these things absolutely need to be, you know, ironed out of, you know, is it Amanda, which it things, everything shouldn't fall on Amanda. Who's the responsibility to keep up the communication with, you know, the business association, with MCA, with the foundation? You know, all of those things need to be outlined, and agree that we need to set, you know, requirements for the committees. So I think we just need to refocus that.
No, I agree with that. I very much appreciate the fact that you're talking about having this strategy session as soon as possible. So
yeah, and Carol, I do want to apologize for cutting. Yes, we did have on the agenda for tonight for the committees to talk, and then we were concerned that there was a little bit of a cart before horse, or like, how are the committee, like, we need some time to like better align from the top down in order for committees to better align with the current mission of the organization. So yes, you're exactly right. We did talk last month about committees meeting, but like Brian was saying, any work that the committees can do before we go in and meet has already helped to identify the needs, and so I think it's all going to help everything in the long run. But I'm sorry that any time that you spent putting into preparing something for today didn't get to be voiced.
It's not wasted time.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It just gives us a jump, and it allows for more strategic thinking and deeper thinking.
Right.
So that's fine. And I just want to say, I saw Gina put up a note about sometimes attending the MCA. She and I can perhaps coordinate about that, because I have a flexible schedule. I'm really busy, but I have a flexible schedule, much more so than a lot of you. So if she and I can always, one of us can attend the MCA, work that out, we'll do it.
Thank you. All right. I failed. It's 8:32. We're 2 minutes over.
Oh, no.
Have a very, very safe and socially distanced. I'm looking forward to never saying that again. Mask wearing holiday season. Go sit in your car and enjoy those lights over by Swaggart. I don't know. I really enjoy each one of you, and I'm so happy that the board is what it is right now, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work more closely with each of you after this year is over.
Take care.
Thank you.
Happy
You
holidays.
too.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays,
Happy holiday, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.